Okay, so now that we have our flying camera rig, how do we bring it into the compositing node and do some post-processing on it? Well, this is the video that's being shot by the camera. Notice we have Do Composite on down here. That means that over in our nodes layout for the flying camera scene, we haven't even started to use any nodes. But by default, Blender says, well, if you're not using nodes and you have Do Composite on, I'll go ahead and cut you a break and just show you whatever the camera sees in the scene. If we use nodes, it shows you again, okay, now it creates this RenderLayer node. It shows you the image and feeds it to the composite output. This is a JPEG image, but because it's coming in from the RenderLayer node, it actually has an alpha and a Z, because that plane is a certain distance away from the camera. You will call 8.75. So this Z is actually putting out a constant value, a flat value of 8.75, because everything within the frame of the camera is 8.75 units away. This is also a way, if we wanted to introduce some alpha value, we can go ahead and just set that plane to have a certain alpha value, and then that alpha value would translate in here through the RenderLayer node. This is bringing in the render layer from the camera that's in the fly camera scene. We can come over here and click this button and choose the other scene, which is the default cube. And so now we can see that even though this render layer is in the fly camera scene, it's pulling in the camera render from a different scene. And this is the way you can use nodes to cross over and combine the images from various scenes within your blend file and combine them into one. For example, now we have two RenderLayer nodes, but they have two totally different images because one is pulling from the fly camera scene and the other is pulling from the general default scene. So we'll go ahead and use this one. And now we want to talk a little bit, remember how we switched over and used a video, and you can do the same thing all within nodes by adding what's called the image input node. This image input node can load up any image that's already in memory, like this Reeby picture. You can also go ahead and select a new image by clicking here and selecting Load New. And that brings up the file browser, where we can go and let's go up a few and go into our AVI directory and pick up that Panama Canal movie. Now, instead of showing us the little single image icon, it shows us the movie icon. It's already detected that this is an AVI file, that there are 2,234 frames in it. It's going to start playing the video when our animation starts with frame 1, so it's going to start right away. If we wanted to delay it a little bit, like by that minute, we type in 1500 here. And now after a minute of animation goes by and the frame counter gets up to 1500, then it's going to start playing the video. It's going to jump right into the start of the video unless we change the offset. So if we have 4 seconds of roll up, you remember the math, it jumps into frame 101 and starts pulling frame 101, skipping the first 100 frames. Same for the cyclic. Once it hits the end of the video, it'll loop around and start picking back up with frame 101 in this case. And as we do noodles and we try to play with the compositing noodle, if we want Blender to try to keep up with us and show us the actual image that's being pulled from the video, we click the little auto, which is the auto refresh icon. Again, if you have the processing power, it's great. If not, don't use it. And whenever you press the render button to manually render, and you'll get the current image. Now again, we have the next video that shows taking either of these two nodes. I think it starts out with the image node. We can do our scaling and our rotation and our cropping all within the nodes network. Instead of using the camera, we can just do it directly within the nodes by pulling in the image directly here, using some nodes and then threading them to the output. And that's all covered in the next video, but I wanted to show you that both the movie controls are here in the nodes, as well as in the previous video we talked about the movie controls being in the UV image editor. They're both the same. These are also the same controls if you ever go over to the textures panel and you're texturing a cube or something like that, if you create a new texture that is an image type, we have the same kind of controls right here. This panel down here, and I'll move this up a little bit so you can see it, this panel has essentially the same controls as well. If we pick a movie, it switches over to using the movie and these very same controls that you saw in the UV image editor. It's the same module. It's our object-oriented programming at its finest, that this same code and these same controls for you to control the image texture are the same as the UV image and are the same basically as the nodes. So they all work consistently and the same.